I honestly believe that a lot of people are struggling unnecessarily in this life because they're trying to navigate life all alone. I believe that mentorship can be one of the greatest gifts that you can have in your human experience. And today I just wanted to talk a little bit about the power of mentorship. Now, when we think about mentorship, sometimes we think that it's something that is so formal, but mentorship can be guidance, mentorship can be wisdom, mentorship can be perspective, okay? It is someone helping you see farther than you currently can see on your own. A mentor can sometimes hear one conversation from you and immediately identify what may have taken you years to understand on your own. And when we think about a mentor, it isn't someone always that you have to pay. Anybody can be a mentor. There are people in your family that can be a mentor. There are trusted persons that, you may look up to that, has integrity. A mentor can be your parents. It can be teachers. It can be pastors. It can be your boss. It can be your coach. It can be older women. It can be disciplined friends. Even people you observe from a distance. Sometimes people mentor you without even realizing it. Just watching how they carry themselves teaches you something. All right. I could remember growing up, my grandmother was such a matriarch. She was a mentor to a lot of the married women in our family, that would come over and they would sit on the porch and, they would express, the challenges and stuff that they would be having. And she would just be giving the greatest advice. And at the time, I would have been about 10 years old. And I could remember those adult conversations that she would have had with those women and how it was instrumental, in saving their marriages. That's the power, of mentorship. And so I want to go a little bit into why, we need a mentor or some of the benefits of a mentor. So benefit one, mentors help you avoid unnecessary pain. Like, for example, I talked about my grandmother, and I could remember her talking to her nieces and her nephews and, a lot of people that really looked up to her. And, for example, when the married women would come to her, one of the things I could remember her saying was, and my grandmother was a very frank woman. She was candid, right? Small in stature, but what a mouth she had on her. She had no time to cut corners on a straight road, as, the island people would say. She's coming straight for you, when you come to her. And so one of the things she would have said to the married women when they would come, with their challenges in marriage, and she would say, this the bitter now, you got to take the bitter with the sweet. So that meant in your marriage, you got to tough it out. That was one of her wisdoms. And whether that was right, or wrong, was a matter of, I guess, who the listener was. She's going to always take it back to the biblical principles. But yeah, that was one thing in my adolescence, I remember her saying, and it just goes to show you that mentorship has always been a part, especially of the Black community. When you listen to older women talk, they were mentoring when they sat on the porch, when they, was at the kitchen and they were straightening the hair with the hot comb. There were conversations to be had. And now we understand that to be mentorship. So mentorship helps you avoid unnecessary pain, and not just in terms of, relationships, also in finances, emotional decisions, and also business mistakes. Like, one of the things I also remembered my grandmother doing was making sure that all of her children had a trade, right? All of her boys, they knew how to do things with their hands. And that was a non-negotiable because she understood, being older, that you needed to bring value with your hands. And even as it relates to finances, I could remember also her telling her grandchildren's mother when they would come, like when she would keep her grandchildren and they would want to give her like money. And she would say, no, child, keep your money, save it for hard times. They come in. And so, without having like a big sit down, teaching, she just said like little things like that let you understand that, listen, I have lived experience and wisdom. Like, you're going to put your money up for rainy days. You're going to need it. I don't, and she was also a woman that was very, I want to say, yes, frugal. Maybe I could say that she was frugal. She was very financially disciplined. And so, just having her in your life was a blessing. She was the type of mentor that everyone needed, not just women, but, men, women, it didn't matter, children. She used her wisdom to impart knowledge. And so definitely mentors can help you avoid unnecessary pain. Mentors expand your vision. Certain people introduce you to a bigger life. And I love this one because especially if you grow up in a state where, you only know what you know. It may be a small town, it may be a small island. When you have a mentor that, you admire their life or their lifestyle or the things that they would have accomplished, they can allow you to just want more, to really expand your life. If you see someone that travels or they're well read and they have confidence, they have standards, it opens you up to possibility. Exposure changes people. Sometimes you do not need motivation. You just need the exposure. You just need to be able to see, that it's possible. So mentors can benefit you in that way. And number 3, another benefit of mentorship is mentors compress time. What took them 20 years may take you 2 years because they already learned the lesson. And I love that. Can you imagine somebody already discovered that the fire was hot and it burns if you put your finger in it? So, you don't have to do that. You have somebody that could tell you like, hey, this is what I learned. I already made that mistake, so you don't have to. That's the power of mentorship. This is one of the strongest points, I think, because you don't have to make mistakes. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. If somebody could tell you, what, even in terms of picking a profession, just say that, listen, that caps at this amount. If you want this kind of lifestyle, I wouldn't bother with that. Or if you do this business, if you want to venture out in this business, oh yeah, I did that. This was something that I found in that market. And I think that, you may want to reconsider this or you may want to reconsider that. That's mentorship. It saves you like so much, so much time. And benefit number 4, mentors help you identify your blind spots. Sometimes we cannot see ourselves clearly. And I love this one, honesty. Remember, I talked about my grandmother. Listen, she was not the person to go to if you did not want to hear the truth. And my mother is like that also. She's going to tell you directly, and you get mad if you want to, but when you want truth, those are the people that you go to. Sometimes you may have bad habits, you may have fear, you may have self-sabotage, but like a mentor would say, listen, this is what I see in you, and this is what you need to look out for. These are some of your blind spots. And they could just give you that incredible guidance and wisdom. So mentors help you identify your blind spots with honesty. And benefit number 5, mentors help you believe bigger. All right. Sometimes before you believe in yourself, somebody wise sees greatness in you first. This is powerful because, and I could relate to this because I remember when I was in the 5th grade in school, and I had a teacher, Miss Bethel, and Miss Bethel was very, very strict. She was very strict, and she had a very, very high standard of things. So much so that I used to write the number 4. You know, there's two ways to write the number 4. You can either write it like, there's two ways to write the number 4, but I remember she kept cracking me on my knuckles because she was like, this child keep writing this number 4 like a sailboat. And to this day, when I'm writing the number 4, you know, I do it the standard way. And I remember her cracking me on my knuckles because she was like, get it right. Okay, get it right. But I digress. So she made me believe bigger in the fact that she put me on the stage. She put me on the stage of public speaking. I was always a articulate child. I did well with essay writing. I did well with stage presence. Like, I remember one time going to Government House, and me and a group of my classmates had to perform at the Government House. We had to do a poem. And I think you call that choral speaking, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember. But I remember going to perform to places and being in speech competition. And it started really with Miss Bethel. And one time I did a speech. I think it was the opening for school. You know, like when you have to do those programs for school, a special guest was coming. And Miss Bethel did something very special for me. Miss Bethel gave me a lotion. The name of the lotion was Candid lotion from Avon. It was a white lotion, very small, about this size. But I remember feeling so good about that little lotion, being like a 10-year-old, because it meant that Miss Bethel saw something in me that was so incredible that she wanted to reward me for, you know, executing what she believed that I could do. And that is the power of mentorship. And I want to go back to say she was very strict, and she wasn't big on like showing emotions, but that was her way of saying, well done. And I tell you no lie, I'm 39. So that would have meant that was 29 years ago, and that Miss Bethel would have given me the opportunity to speak. And up to this day, you know, because she would have believed in me, and she would have coached me and guided me, that I have the confidence, to do what I do today, you know. And she is just one of the persons that was so instrumental in who I am today, in my becoming. So this is the power, you know, of mentorship. Mentors help you believe bigger. They help you to believe what you cannot even see at the time. All right. And so when you are considering mentorship, consider those 5 things. It's beneficial to your life. Like I said earlier in the video, it is one of life's cheat codes, life's shortcuts, and it's just a beautiful gift. If you could find a mentor, that is one of the greatest gifts that you can have in this lifetime. And so how to find a mentor, how to find one, you know, and this is something that is very important, because I know for me, I always said that I don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room. And so I have always, well, not always, but in recent years, I looked for a mentor, you know, and I found that you have to find the mentor that is the best fit for you. So I would say stop looking, you know, for famous people. Not every mentor is on the internet. Look for fruit. Find people whose lives reflect the results that you desire. Serve and learn. This is an important one. Whatever you want to do in this life, don't be afraid to serve, because through apprenticeship, you can learn so much. So sometimes mentors begin through service, humility, observation, and consistency. So if you see someone you admire, find out how you can help them, you know, serve and learn. And then, of course, I could not make a video without saying this. Read books. Some of the wisdoms that I have attained in recent years are from mentors, you know, books on finance, books on personal development. A lot of the information that you want, a lot of the guidance, a lot of the perspective you want is in the books, and not just nonfiction. Don't sleep on fiction. So books allow you to sit with wisdom from people you may have never met. All right. And I would also say, I would close with saying, stay teachable. Pride blocks wisdom. Don't ever think that you know everything and, oh, who are they to tell me, anything? What do they know? Always have a spirit of wanting to learn, being a person that is able to receive. Always be open, even to the person sometimes I know there's a quote that says, don't listen to people that you don't want to switch places with. My mother always warns me about that, because sometimes people made mistakes and they're able to tell you, well, hey, I made that mistake. You don't have to do that. So don't just think you could learn from successful people. You could definitely learn from people that did not have success as well. So be open-minded, be teachable, be coachable. All right. And I want to say that life is a journey. We're not going to know everything. It will be a grave mistake to think that you know everything and you don't need anyone, or you got it all figured out. And I know sometimes you can feel that way, but as you take your journey, there's going to be different seasons, and you'll realize that we could get further together. You're not going to have it all figured out, and that is perfectly fine. Sometimes people mentor you unknowingly. You talk to someone and you realize, like, wow, this person has such a great perspective on this. I love talking to them, and you don't have to go about and say, okay, I want to find a mentor. Just talk to people. Like I said, if there's someone you admire, ask them to pick their brain on this, and treat your mentor well. If you appreciate the wisdom that somebody gives to you, don't just extract from them. Show them you appreciate them. Let them know that, listen, that little nugget that you gave me, that really helped me. Give them their flowers. Give them their flowers. Our late Miles Monroe, our national treasure, said, the greatest tragedy in this life is not death, but life without purpose. And he's also one of the persons that is a great mentor. Listening to his videos and also reading his books has also helped me in my life's journey. So finally, in closing, I want to say I truly believe life becomes richer, wiser, and more intentional when we stop trying to know everything alone. Everybody needs someone who can see farther than they currently can. So I encourage you to attach yourself to a mentor, sit with them, take from them, absorb from them. And it is always my intention for you to live a life of intentionality and abundance. Thank you for sitting here with me for these few minutes, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.